Thank you, Alex. Yes, as Alex said, thank you so much for filling in that form. The one thing it really enlightened me about is that it was going to be impossible to do today's session effectively. So this is going to be fun, but hopefully there will be something in today's session that you can take away with you. So quick introduction as to who I am. My name is Pete Dunford. I'm a lecturer here in Bridgend College in South Wales, lecturer in animal care. My background is science, so I tend to do all the biology, anatomy and physiology, that kind of stuff. And my hobby is spreadsheets. I am one of those people who I'm quite happy to put my hands up now. I'm old enough that I can take it on the chin and say, yes, actually, my little quiet space involves sitting there with a spreadsheet, and I love it. They used to terrify me. And then I learned a very simple trick not to be terrified by them. So I'll share that with you in a second. But I'm a collector of badges, as you can see on screen. I am a Google certified innovator, certified coach, and certified trainer. I just really like putting myself out there and trying to learn new things and then try and put those things into practice. And hopefully some of that will come across today. Now, we've got half hour. 25 minutes really now, and I've got a few hints and tips that I'd like to share. So I'm just going to go straight on into it really, and I'm going to try and stick to time, okay, as much as I possibly can, because I hate it when meetings overrun, and the same with webinars, okay? So really strict with myself there, which means I might rush a little bit, but you are very, very welcome to find me on LinkedIn or send me an email, have conversations outside of this. If you've got questions, then please feel free. I'm more than happy to talk to people. I love collaborating wherever I can. So quick disclaimer before I begin. From that Google form, it was really, really clear that for some of you, what I'm going to say, some bits will go over your head, okay? And we haven't got time necessarily to unpick everything about Google Sheets, okay? Even if you're sat there terrified of spreadsheets, don't log off, okay? Please stick with me. There are some bits which are for absolute beginners as well. But if it's feeling a bit too advanced, just daydream, turn me off for a little bit, come back a little bit later. It's not a problem. I'm not going to be offended. Likewise, for some of you, I think you're probably more advanced than I am, in which case, it might be everything I say feels really patronizing. Again, you're welcome to daydream, okay? I'm used to my students daydreaming in the background of the class, so it doesn't fuss me, you know, we're all in FE here, or HE perhaps. So it's impossible to do a session that satisfies everyone. I hope that all of you can at least take one thing away from what I say. I've got about 10-ish tips that I'm going to share with you. Some of them, as I say, more advanced than others. Some of them seem really simple. So my first tip, let's go straight into it, is perhaps the most important one that I had to learn before I could really do spreadsheets. And it's simply that you just have to know what you want to achieve. Okay. The biggest problem I see with people trying to start spreadsheets is that they sit down with an empty spreadsheet in front of them and they go, now what? You've got to have a problem. You've got to have some reason to be in the spreadsheet in the first place. It's not a friendly thing like Docs where you might just decide to write a novel or it's not creative in that respect. Okay, you've got to have a purpose. Once you know your purpose, you know what you want to achieve. And once you know what you want to achieve, it doesn't matter if you know how to do it or not. Look it up. Okay, there is so much out there. Once you know what you're trying to get as your end goal, honestly, just search for it. Or even better, ask Gemini. And these days, having it open as a little kind of collaborator on the side that you can say, this is what I want to achieve, how do I do it? And it will tell you what the formula, it will write the formulas for you. Whether that's Gemini in Sheets, which some of you have got, if you've got the more advanced Google Workspace options, or if it's just having it in a standalone app, it doesn't really matter. I've just got it in a standalone app. And it works just as effectively. You can share your sheet with it. Obviously, if you're doing anything like that, always caution you, use your workspace accounts, don't use your personal accounts because of the risk of data breaches and things like that and the way that the data is being trained. But ask it and fight back. If you think that doesn't sound like what I told you, then tell it that, yeah? Always with any sort of AI, fight back. You're the human, you're the one who knows what you want to achieve. If what it's doing doesn't look right, tell it, okay? Push back, move forwards. So that's the first one, really simple tip there. Just ask. If you know what you're doing, you know what you want to achieve, get Gemini to help you do it. Second tip, name your tabs. I've helped so many people with spreadsheets who've got themselves into knots and they simply haven't approached it logically. Spreadsheets is a game of logic, okay? So keep things as clean and tidy as you can. Okay, name the sheets at the bottom. You can always rename them if you don't like what you named them. Don't give them big elaborate ones. I often have tabs that are just named X or Y, because when I'm typing formula, if I need to refer to that tab, all I need to do is type X exclamation mark and then say what the range is, and it goes in. So it's a lot quicker. As soon as you start giving yourself faffy names, then it's going to become a problem. All those names, if you rename the tab, they will all update for you. Okay, they will go through and cascade, automatically change to whatever you put them to. So give them a useful name when you're finished building it, but during the building phase, keep it simple. And don't be scared of creating more. Sometimes we get this thing that people think it's a spreadsheet. I need to have all 1,000 rows and columns filled, and no. Keep them isolated. Okay, one little table in each one is absolutely fine. Maybe 3 or 4 if you want to be adventurous, but don't fill them with masses of data. You can if you have to, but just create another tab. If you've got a different set of data to put in there, put it in there, because you can link them together. You can refer to them with formulae. Okay, so create as many tabs as you need, name them logically. Okay, third tip. This one was a game changer for me. Sometimes you'll want to create a spreadsheet based on data that somebody else has in their spreadsheet. And with Google Sheets, there's a beautiful formula, import range. And it allows you to collect data from one spreadsheet and bring it into the sheet that you're working on. Okay, so for that to work, there it is. You need 2 bits of information. You need to know the web address, the URL for the spreadsheet you're trying to link to, and the tab and range that you want to import. Okay, you can be selective. You can literally take the middle of one tab. It doesn't matter. You choose which cells you're wanting to bring through. Now, when you do that, both those bits of information need to be in speech marks. Okay, it's going to be taking it as an exact bit of information. Nothing here will update. Okay, you put in the web address, you'll put in which tab, which range you want, and then it will bring it through, except at the beginning it won't. Okay, it's going to say we need access first. So it may pretend, it may play along with you for the first time you do it, but next time you go into that sheet, it's going to say, no, there's a problem. Click on the cell and there's just the provide access button. You click that and it will link the sheets together. Only needs to be done the once, but sometimes it hides the fact it needs to do it, and you'll pull your hair out trying to work out why your sheet's not working. Okay, you got to do that. Now, again, let's hop back to data for a second. You have to have access to the spreadsheet you're trying to get data from. The other viewers in your spreadsheet don't have to have that access to see the data. Okay, use this carefully. You do not want to be bringing through data that is private, that you don't want others to see, and provide them with the access. Okay, the Sheets is one of those places where it is possible for you to effectively leak data out without thinking about it. So be mindful of what data you're pulling in. Are you genuinely happy for everybody who sees that sheet to have access to that portion of the data? They can't access the rest of the spreadsheet, but that portion of the data they can. Okay, so you need to just be really mindful of that, please. Okay, 3.5. Because when you're doing these sorts of things, sometimes you find that you remember, oh yeah, Pete said something about import range, but I can't remember how to use it. These by default are all on, but sometimes people hide them. So if you put in a formula and you've got this blue box with a little question mark, click on that question mark and it will tell you what information it's needing. Okay, and it tells you in a nice, boring kind of, yes, give us a spreadsheet URL range string, expecting you to know what that is. Next to where it says range string, you can see it in the black box there, downward arrow. Click on that and you will get the rest of the information. Okay, and it will tell you what it is you should be putting in and what sort of format it should be in. Pay attention to that format. Okay, if it's not in the right format, it won't work. Now on this screen, you can see what I mean about the speech marks around the URL. And about the tab name, you can see the tab name there is World Cup. Exclamation mark tells the formula that it's a tab rather than a range of cells, and then from the range A1 to D21 in this case. So that all needs to be packaged up nicely. Then when you hit enter, provide the access when it asks for it, and job done. So remember, you can open up, you can see more about these. If you actually scroll down on this little screen, you'll get an option to click out to a guide that will give you a little bit more information as well. So that's well worth making use of if you need it. Okay, tip number 4. One of the things people were saying is about XLOOKUP and VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, and golden rule, do not ever now use HLOOKUP or VLOOKUP. Now, they used to be really, really valuable. And then Microsoft, Google kind of collaborated, I think, on this one a little bit to create XLOOKUP. And with XLOOKUP, all the problems we had with H and VLOOKUP, sorry, I muted myself there. So let me just explain that for those of you thinking, what is he talking about with HLOOKUP and VLOOKUP? So these were really useful functions that enabled you to search through a table for a particular result, say a student name, and bring back a bit of data about them. Maybe their date of birth, maybe it would be a phone number or a grade or whatever. So these two worked together. HLOOKUP was horizontal. It used to search along the first row of a range. Vertical lookup did the same, but in the first column of a range. The search key is what's the data you're looking for, say student name, the range where it's going to be looking for that. And then index, you had to tell it how many rows or columns away your desired information is. So maybe it's 3 columns away from the name. The problem is this never updated. That 3 was fixed. It wasn't linked to anything. So if your data then goes and changes, you had to go back through every one of these formulas to make sure it was bringing back the correct bit of information. XLOOKUP solves that. So if you're still using HLOOKUP and VLOOKUP, switch. Okay. So XLOOKUP, same principle. You got your search key. What are you looking for? The range, where is it going to find it? But now it doesn't matter whether it's horizontal or vertical. You're going to tell it what range you want it to pick the answer from to give back to you. Okay, and it can be either horizontal or vertical. It really doesn't matter. As long as the result range is actually the same size as the lookup range, you'll be okay. So it could be horizontal or vertical, so long as it matches, we're good. You can nest, by the way, if you get really advanced, you can nest these XLOOKUP functions with other functions as well. I'm not doing that today because we're already at 4:15. So tip number 5, said I'll be going fast. If statements, nest them, okay? Like a load of Russian dolls, if you want to get data and you want it to start working for you and telling you things without you having to think, nest if statements. So what do I mean by that? Well, an if statement is simply if, then you give a condition, and then you say, if that's true, I want you to tell me this. If it's false, I want you to tell me this. Okay, so let me give you an example. I have tracking sheets that I've created for our student grades, and they look something like this at the end. When all the calculations are done, we have it will tell us whether the student has distinction, merit, pass, or fail. So my statement might go, right, if C10, that's where the fun grade averages, is greater than 3, I need you to tell me it's too high. I've made a mistake. It can't be higher than 3. That's not possible. So if it's higher than 3, tell me what the problem is, rather than making me guess or giving me wrong information. So I've got C10 is greater than 3, tell me too high. Notice the speech marks. I want it to tell me exactly what's in the speech marks. Then, instead of going into what to tell me if false, I go into another if statement. So if it's not true that it's greater than 3, then it looks at the next one. Okay, is it greater than or equal to 2.6? If that's true, it will say distinction. If that's false, it will go on to the next one. If C10 is greater than or equal to 1.6, tell me merit. If that's false, is it greater than or equal to 1, in which case tell me pass. And if that's false, tell me fail, because basically it's under 1, that counts as a fail in terms of that. Now, the only thing to remember is to try and close all the brackets, but I would say Sheets is your friend here, and it will actually finish all the brackets for you if you forget to do that. If you press enter, it will just write them in for you, so you don't have to worry too much. But that's why you get all these closed brackets at the end. We are just technically closing all the statements off there. So you can nest these to create a situation where it is telling you based on whatever grade the student has. Then, point 5 again, use conditional formatting. You want to try and visualize what you're looking at. You don't want to have to try and think too hard, so use colors. Conditional formatting, if you've not used it before, is very simple to use. You select the cells, you say, I want to go to formatting, conditional formatting, and then it will say, what do you want? And it will create a list. Now, it's worth remembering here, it reads the list from the top down. And as soon as it finds a condition that it agrees with, it will display based on that formatting, okay? It won't stack them, you won't get multiple. So the very top one on that particular box I've shown, you'll see is a slightly different looking one to the rest. It's actually if the student's been withdrawn, then it just grays out there all the writing and strikes through, and it removes all the color at the same time. So that's at the top. First thing it's checking is, are they still withdrawn? Or are they still enrolled, I suppose it should be. And then it looks through the colors. If the text is pass, color it green. If it's merit, color it yellow. If it's distinction, color it blue. And now my if statements are not just changing the writing, they're changing the colors so that I can easily see what the situation actually is. If you're doing that sort of thing, you're going to be wanting to duplicate your rules. So it's worth knowing that when you're doing your writing of the rules there is an add another rule. If you click that version of add another rule, it will actually duplicate your current rule, and you can just tweak the color and the phrase, and you can scoot through them really quickly then in creating them. It keeps the range the same, it keeps everything the same. You can just alter it as you want to. Okay, time is really running away from me. Tip number 6, when you're trying to get data into your spreadsheet, use a Google form. Okay, it's absolutely the easiest, most user-friendly way of getting other people to give you data. But a couple of golden rules. Google Forms, don't use any text entry. If it's going into a spreadsheet that you want to analyze, you want to provide the answers. You know then that they are going to all match. Okay, you don't want to be in a situation where you're trying to compare things and people have put typos in there. Spreadsheets do not like typos. Okay, so obviously if you're trying to get opinions, free text entry, but you're not going to be able to analyze that in Google Sheets terribly well. But anything that you think, actually, I want strict answers, you tell that, and that information will come correctly into your sheet. And the second thing I always used to create was what I called a mirrored tab, where I would then just create a blank tab and I would cause it to copy all the form data out of the linked tab into the new one. You don't have to do that these days. It was for a very specific reason, and that's when new form responses come in, it creates a new row. It doesn't add it onto an existing row. And so if you create a range in a formula, it wouldn't then capture any new form responses. By mirroring it onto a separate sheet, you could then tell it a full range, say 100 cells down, and every new response then would be mirrored into it, and it would correctly show in your data. These days, as forms comes into sheets, it formats it as a table, and it's possible to click on the header of the table and reference the header of the table, which will then have all of the data in the table in that particular column. So use that rather than specifying a range of cells. Okay, so if you're trying to reference form data, play around, click on the header for the table rather than the cells themselves, and then every new response will get captured by your formula as well. Okay, nearly there, I think. If you're just getting started with using formula, that consistency in your data, set it with forms, is absolutely key. So if you're not using forms, if you're using Google Sheets to get people to input onto, again, try and provide them with options. The easiest way of doing that is drop down options. So you can click on a cell, you can tell it to format as a drop down box, you can tell it specifically what the options are, and they have to select from there. When you get more confident with that, there's an option for drop down from a range, and you can create a range of cells, even ones that will alter as things go on with different conditions, and that will change the options the other people have. That's kind of quite advanced stuff I'm not going into today, but it exists. Ask Gemini, it will tell you how to do it. But drop-down options, again, you're restricting the mistakes people can make, okay? If you need a yes or no response, just use tick boxes, okay? They work as true or false statements, effectively. So a tick box is true, an empty box is false. So when you're analyzing the data, then every tick counts as a true, every blank is a false. So you can, again, start to use if statements. If it's true, do this. If it's false, do this. And I think we're finally there, which is perhaps the most important one of all. If you are sharing your sheet with anybody else, don't let them touch it. Protect the stuff they don't need access to. Okay, absolutely, Zoe. Yeah, that's coming up at the end. So you can protect your formulae. Okay, you right-click on the tab name, you click protect the sheet, and it will bring up in the sidebar option like this. Now, really easy to work out the range. If you click on that, you can select which cells cannot be edited. Okay, the rest of the tab is open. So if you've got one particular column you don't want people to play around with, just protect that column as a range, job done. Most people won't even realize the protection's there, other than a small little padlock in the corner on some of the sheets. But it's just making sure they can't delete your formulae, they can't change the formulae, okay? The other way around, the sheet is that you can click accept certain cells, you can lock the entire tab except for a specific range that people are allowed to edit. That's what I tend to do. And then I can play around with all sorts in the tab, but nobody else can go in and break everything that I've spent hours creating. So make sure you protect your spreadsheets if you're sharing them with people. Okay, I shot through that really fast, and it was a huge amount of information. 20 minutes isn't long. Now, if you didn't find a golden nugget, there is an extra one for you, just in case you needed that. I've got a QR code here and a link. I'll put the link into the chat as well. I would really appreciate any feedback that you've got to give. And if you're watching this back on YouTube, whatever, then you are very welcome to please give me feedback. I'm an absolute feedback junkie. And so at the end of giving the feedback, that's where you get the link to the slides. No such thing as a free lunch and all that. So give me feedback. You've got access to these slides then. To be fair, I will actually share them out afterwards as well. I'll give them to Alex and Roddy and Wendy, and they can get up onto the GEG post 16 chat. But we've got about 5 minutes left. So if anybody's got any questions or thoughts or whatever, you're very welcome to unmute and ask away.
That was really useful, Pete. Thank you. I must admit, I haven't heard anyone say VLOOKUP in about 12 years.
Yeah, I think
it's the same to my colleague.
Yeah, it's amazing how many spreadsheets I suddenly see, though, that have it still kind of badgering away in the background. But yeah.
But it's the fact that it will update from a spreadsheet with the new information rather than just giving you an error code is really good. So yeah. Thank you. That's great.
That's okay. Okay. Lovely.
Thank you so much, Pete. But it's also for people who are not familiar with the formulas, etc. Gemini is your best friend. Absolutely. I mean, the stuff I'm building now, it's incredible. It will guide you. Sorry?
Even if you think that you're an absolute spreadsheet whiz, still ask Gemini. It's amazing how many times you might sit there, you write a formula, and then you find that actually there's an entirely easier way of doing it that you just never really considered, you never used before. They're coming up in new functions all the time. So it's well worth kind of just asking Gemini and getting a sense of that to use, no matter how experienced you are.
Pete, can I jump in and say on that, I've learnt from Gemini the formula array, A-R-R-A-Y, which means that rather than dragging and dropping a formula all the way down a column, it will write it in the top of the column, write it in the top row, and then it does it automatically all the way down, which I hadn't known was a thing, but I found that really useful. Yeah. Could you, a little question, could you remind me, because I never remember, if I'm importing range, do I need view access on the sheet I'm importing, or do I need to be an editor?
Oh, that's a really good question. I can't confidently give you an answer. I believe view access is fine, but I'd need to play around and check it out. Most of the time I have edit access to the spreadsheets that I'm playing around with. But
it's not just me, I can never remember.
No, I'm pretty confident view access is fine. Just be careful with that, though. I did have one last enrollment where we've been given the whole college enrollment list, and I was like, no, I need to strip this back, so it's just animal care for us. So I did that, and we were working in my new spreadsheet, and then suddenly everything just went completely crazy. And it turned out somebody in the original spreadsheet had just reordered all the data. And because they've reordered the data, what was in the range that I was putting through was suddenly changed, and we had a whole load of electrical engineering students showing up rather than animal care students. So you have got to be careful if you're doing that sort of thing. Just think through what could happen and how critical is it that it doesn't. If it's really critical that nothing changes, perhaps make a copy of that spreadsheet before and then just manually check to see whether the old one's been updated. But don't link directly to it. Amara.
I just want to add one thing, like when you are like analyzing the data, what you can do is you can put like add another row at like the first row, like a row, and then in that row you can put like numbers in sequence wise, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And even someone like edits your data or rearrange it, then you will know like what order it is. So
yeah, that's a good shout, saying that you can manually just look back and go, oh, that's not looking right. Yeah, that's a great little tip there. Thank you. Right, I think it is 4:30, so thank you very much. As I say, if you can give me feedback, I really appreciate it. I appreciate that some of you are driving and can't right now, but thank you ever so much for coming along. I really appreciate that.
Thank you,
Thank
Pete.
you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks very much.